Hello and welcome, people. With YouTube, we're gonna do a different kind of video today. It's kind of more of a review discussion of the new Resident Evil 4 and how it does. I'm joined with Rommel, who is brand new to the series.
Extremely brand new.
Well, this was your first one by yourself, right?
Yeah, first one by myself. Really only started with Resident Evil 5 since you got it for me, but before
Yeah.
that I hadn't even really given a look to any of the Resident Evil games.
And now
Only saw some of the stuff that happened with Village just cuz that was everywhere.
I mean, yeah, that one was a bit. I mean, after 7, that one took off like crazy. It
Yep.
was like a wildfire. But anyways, I got some points that I thought were good and wanted to go over because I thought it'd be a good discussion and see what it's like coming from someone who's played the game since 2000 who's been into the series since 2011 to and compare it to someone who just recently got into the series, or at least
Yeah.
like very very noob eyes onto the game that probably saved the entire franchise first.
It's something of a fresh perspective, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first point, main story. I'll comparing it to the original, I think the story was better than this one.
I
Like
mean,
I
the
think
story in the remake definitely seems all right.
it
I
just
mean,
seems there's a lot less plot holes. There's a few plot holes and there's quite a few decisions that the characters made that made you go like, why did they do that? Like
right.
like there's one scene where Leon gets caught by Mendez and then or the Big Cheese, as we didn't really know his name in the original.
He was just that
He
guy.
was the Big Cheese, whatever. So we didn't actually get to see. I think we saw his name in a paper, and that was it. No one called him by his name. Uh, then we got, but like he got caught. And he was let go because he carries the same blood. They carry the same blood or something like that. And then in the next scene, he's trying to kill Leon again. It's like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
that doesn't make much sense.
No, it doesn't.
I
It
will I
doesn't.
will say the remake does make that a little more consistent
It was
because
I guess it was technically an optional cutscene because like you didn't have to go through the door, but that was the only way you got to see Ada for the first time.
right.
Yeah, so
But
there's
at
that.
least in the new one, it seems to make a little more sense. Where,
Everything seems more fluid. I mean, like it seems like they
especially when
really.
it comes to what Mendez does, it seems like he's actually trying to not kill Leon, and the only time he actually tries is when he's like, "All right, you're getting in the way
You're a
too
little
much."
shit. Fuck you. That's what
because
it.
because
That's what it seems
ultimately
like.
plot wise Los Illuminados want to take control of Ashley so that they can infiltrate the United States government, which that's at least obvious enough.
Yeah, and that was the idea.
If Leon's gonna
First
get
they
too much in
ransom.
the way,
First they.
as much as he would make a good asset to the cult, if he's gonna actually have a chance of stopping you, then he needs to be gotten rid of.
Yeah, like if he's throwing too much of a wrench in your plans, then it's time to just.
Which basically that's what happens after the village chase, where you
Yeah.
narrowly escape across the rickety boards. Is That's the
Narrowly.
point? Narrowly.
Really narrowly.
Yeah,
That's at
no,
that point.
that's pretty much the point where they decide that Leon is too much of a liability, and that at least makes sense.
hmm Then, what was well, like all in all though, I think like it was pretty cool as seeing like all the throwbacks in the story that they brought from the original into this one. Sorry, I was turning my phone on mute. I
Yeah,
forgot
they
to do
did
that.
some made some like references to the old ones.
Oh yeah, especially with the strain, especially with the merchant, because like talks about his back and like how
Yeah, I
the years
remember
haven't been
hearing
kind to
that
us.
line, and
I'm
I'm
just,
like, oh,
I'm just like,
I know
God
what that's a
damn it! Why do you
reference
gotta
to.
why do you gotta say that, man? Now you're making me feel old because I've been playing this since I was a kid.
As much as that's funny, that also doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No,
If if the context is the same, anyways, because then
I
it's
mean,
like,
no,
did
I
both
think
Resident Evil happen,
no,
or
I don't think that's what they were trying to say. I think like they're
it's
just
just
trying
a
to
cheeky
say
reference?
it's just
No,
a cheeky reference
just
to
don't think
how
about it too
it's a
much.
remake. But like I think what it was is that like it was just like him complaining about his old age, his older age, anyways.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that makes sense. Although it's hard to tell exactly how old he is because you don't get to see very much of him.
No, you don't. He's always shrouded and stuff. But like, I'm really glad they kept him. I'm really glad they kept his attitude. His attitude is pretty similar to the old one.
Yeah, at least keeping him consistent, if nothing
Yeah.
else,
Anyways,
because
how
that's
do you?
important.
But how do you feel? How do you feel the story delivered and its impact? Like, I think the delivery is pretty good, and the impact was. I mean, the impact was
So
hard for me because like I've already been through it.
So I can kind of summarize the way I feel about the story
Mm.
pretty concisely, I would say. It's that the story itself, it's not anything super compelling, but it works enough to connect the gameplay to each other. So you go from one segment to the next, and the story is kind of the bridge to make that happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the characters themselves, for the most part, are a little bit bland. Like the actual, like
Yeah, the next
the
point was gonna
people
be.
being interesting people is like the thing
Yeah, that was
that's a
gonna be the
little
next
tough for
point.
me.
That was gonna be the next point is the characters in this one.
Yeah, because
Yes,
like I said,
there's
the story's fine. The story has always just been. It's not meant to be compelling or like bring you to tears, or
no,
it's not a drama in the sense that it's
it
supposed to
is more of
be
an action movie than
extremely detailed.
it is
It
more of an
the
action movie than a tearjerker. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
again, the story is the vehicle for the gameplay. It's
Yeah.
what brings the gameplay to you.
So like honestly, I think the story kind of lost touch because of the fact that like this story was written in 2004 and they kept the same story, which I mean they should because it's a remake. It's not a complete redo. But
I will say, because I've seen the old story, just not through playing but just through watching it.
mhm.
I will say the new story they did a pretty good job of making it a little more modern and accessible to like a newer audience.
Yeah.
I will say they definitely did that. Just because the bits of the old one were talking a lot about like the political events of the era, like the whole there was still very much the era of the war on terror and
Oh yeah,
conflict in the Middle East, and
that's something the
that gets
Axeman.
referenced quite a bit
Yeah, that's something the
in the
Axeman
old one.
put in his video when he talked about Resident Evil 4, the original being a masterpiece, and he's like, just imagine like you're back into that like this is back when the war on terror was just announced. This is back when terrorism was a huge thing. So to have another video game talk about these taboo and controversial subjects wasn't. I mean, like it wasn't really a strong. It wasn't a what was it? A common thing back then. So it was just a
Yeah, well,
different,
it wasn't common because ultimately
because
a lot of people still I think believe that politics in your game could turn people off just because it's
yeah.
hard to handle that sort of thing in a way
But
that's
the way they did it in that one, it wasn't really trying to be all political. It was just trying to take some kind of it was trying to put
it
what's
gave
the
the
word?
villains motivation,
Yeah, it's to give it's to give motivation to that the player can relate with.
which
That's what.
ultimately that's super important for your
Yes.
game, obviously. Is you
Yeah.
need to have villains that have good
Like
motivation.
we gotta.
Which,
I mean,
luckily in the remake, the villains still have motivations that make sense.
yeah.
Luckily that's not a problem or anything.
So with that, I think we
What
just
they
move
do
on.
still does make sense because you can say that they're still just trying to take control of the U.S. government. Why? Because that's a lot of power, and you can do a lot of things with that power,
Yeah.
including grow Los Illuminados into taking over the whole world. Which that's a good villain
Great step.
fantasy.
That's a great step there.
If you're a cult, taking over the whole world is usually a pipe dream, but when you can literally mind control people, it gets a whole lot easier.
It's a lot
All you
easier.
gotta do is distribute it.
Just get the distribution here. Uh, I think what. one last thing to touch on the story. I think the story for 5 is going to be completely different now, though.
It would have to, because I mean,
Because
obviously I played
in the
5, so I
original,
know a bit more of the story about
well, yeah, because
5.
like they even say in the original, I mean in 5 that from the original, the Las Plagas from the Kennedy report, aka the events that happened in Spain, led to the creation of the Magini. So if Ada doesn't take the sample, spoilers by the way, in case anyone hasn't really watched it, but anyways, I'm gonna put spoiler alert in the description. But anyways, uh,
Yeah, because
if there's like
obviously it's worth mentioning that at the end of Resident Evil 4, the remake,
Ada
Ada does not take
has
the
a change
sample to
of heart,
Wesker.
which is weird
So
because
it means that
she's always been money
that
driven.
spreading would have to that spreading would have to happen differently somehow.
Yeah.
Like it would
So
have to get over there through some sort of other like vehicle or means, you know?
yeah. So I'm interested to see, like, does that mean Separate Ways is going to be different though?
I mean,
Because Separate Ways was just
it's going to be
Ada's.
hard to say. Obviously, I actually don't know like anything about the
Yeah.
actual separate ways
It
because
was literally the
it
same
seems like
story, but it was literally just the same story through Ada's eyes. Like you played through Ada's side of it. Like
it
they're
seems
bringing.
like she could still like at least for the beginning part it would still be the same just cuz she only has her change of heart at the end. Like through most of it she's still trying to get the amber, which I feel like that could still be the same as before, but
Yeah, that was always the main objective. Was get her main objective was get the original sample of Lost Plagas and get it to and get paid.
yeah.
But anyways, so moving on, the characters in this one, and this one's going to be a very controversial one, because
You know, when it comes to characters, the characters of most of the people in the new one are they're just not good.
here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna list off characters, and I want to say which one I'd give it to. Either the original or the remake. Which ones I would like, which ones I like better. Right? It's like Leon,
All right.
original, original Leon.
Yeah,
Like he was way more
Leon
sarcastic.
in the
He
Leon in
was
the remake is very
he's so
he's
emo.
I
He's
don't want
very
to say
emo.
I don't want to say he's a block of wood, but he doesn't really show emotion a lot. Which I mean, if you want to
All right,
take a
so
more serious take on things, I guess it would make sense because he was, you know, the
he didn't
main
show
character
emotions,
of
and
like the early Resident Evil stuff
so in
after one,
In
where
the original,
he was going through some traumatic shit. So he's
yeah,
obviously a traumatized person, and it would reflect that. But
yeah.
from what little I know, it seems like earlier iterations of Leon was more just like he used humor as like a coping mechanism for his trauma. That
Yeah.
seemed more like what was going on, is that he was cracking jokes at inappropriate times because that was how he learned how to deal with all the horrific shit going on
I'm a
that
lot.
Umbrella and
Yeah.
Los Illuminados did.
Which I mean, like if anyone is military, like anyone who's military will tell you that's probably the most common way to
Yeah, humor
deal
is
with
a very
trauma.
common coping mechanism for trauma.
Yeah. Like, but like he just seemed like it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough banter. There wasn't enough
Like he still had his
joke.
moments where he was
He
funny,
still had
but
his moments.
it didn't seem like he was trying to do it as a way to make people not worry about him,
Yeah.
because whenever he talked to other people, I think Luis is the only one that he really cracked those jokes with, unless it was like Ashley really late in the story.
When he wasn't busy insulting him about working for Umbrella.
Yeah. But like if you like the way he talks to Hunnigan and all of the villains, basically, he's not really quippy all that much. I'd say maybe the only exception is while you're fighting Salazar, he does make quite a good few good quips in there.
Yeah. I will say, all right. So moving on from Leon, Ashley, I'm giving it a remake.
Yeah,
I think this is I think no one
yeah,
will ever argue on
remake
this
actually
one.
is very cool because
Yes.
from what little I know about the way the old game
Oh
went,
my
it's
god,
that
that cunt.
she didn't
Ah.
really have
I gotta
she
bleep
didn't
that
really
out.
have a lot of agency as a character. She didn't have like an arc of any kind. She wasn't really meant to be
She's so static.
anything
She
more
doesn't
than
change at
like
all.
anything more than a bit of like a difficulty curve for the player to have
Yeah.
to worry about her. Like that seemed mostly just why she was there, and it didn't really go beyond that.
No, and like for the most part, you could just put her in the fucking garbage where she belongs.
Yeah, but in the remake, she'll actually like help you.
Yeah, she'll actually do stuff. Like she actually fights with you at some point in the game, and that's really
She
cool.
fights with you, and I will say with her AI, especially the way
The AI is way better.
she behaves in more of a way like she is trying to,
Stay alive.
preserve her own well-being. Cuz like for example, if you have her on the setting where she's supposed to follow close to you
Yeah,
and you aim your weapon at enemies that are in front of you and there's not anything behind you, she will get like right up on your back and she will stay there because
yep,
she knows that that's the safest place to be.
yep.
Which like you're when you look at that, you're like, damn, you're actually trying to protect yourself. Good. That means I don't have to worry about you all the time.
Meanwhile, in a remake, all she would do is just stand like right next to you, like not
Yeah,
even
the
behind you.
original
I mean, the
from what
original.
I've seen
Yeah,
of the original, it seemed like a lot of that was just her trying to get killed,
yeah.
frankly.
She was just a larger hit. She
So,
was a extender, and she was a hitbox extender, and then she was another
in a
life fighter
smaller
range
health bar.
and a very small health bar. If you ever used your yellow herbs to increase her health bar, you were it was just a waste. Like everyone just viewed it as a waste because one, she's only in there for like 50% of the game. Like you're escorting her because she gets captured like 5 times.
Yeah.
And
But
then
yeah, anyways, just to, bring it back on topic. Ashley
yeah,
as a character, more fleshed out. She actually has a character arc this time. She grows by the end of the story, which is huge.
exactly.
She
Like
actually comes out of the very traumatic experience as a different person, and she's not just thirsty for Leon for no reason. Like she is still thirsty. Don't get me
oh,
wrong.
I don't
But
know. I don't get
that's
sexual
actually a sort of
vibes.
thing that
I don't. Okay, so like I don't actually get a
she's
sexual
no
vibe from
so
her. I get more of a an admiration vibe. Like she admires the way Leon does
yeah,
things, and not
I think
and
it's more just that it's still there, but it's just more subtle this time. She's
yeah,
not like, "Hey, Leon, wanna fuck?"
like
She's
she
like,
is at the ending of the
I could get
original.
you assigned to my detail, and then we could be around each other a lot more, you know?"
Yeah.
That's more of the way it is in this one because that's more of like what would actually go on. You wouldn't be like at the end of it, "Hey, want to go to my place for some overtime?" That's a little on the nose and cheeky, and I don't like I it fit with the older vibe, I guess, because it was always more corny like that, but it fits more with the new tone that they put in. Like her whole character does, and that makes me happy that it fits the new material.
Exactly. So moving on from Ashley, I'm gonna go with Lewis. Honestly, it's a tie for me, but I for nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses, probably going with the original because
You think so?
he was just so like he like I like because like I said, rose-tinted glasses from the original. I mean, like the original Lewis. Like I when I first met him, I was like, I like this guy. When I first met Luis in this one, I was like, you're kind of a dick. Or you're like when he just leaves like when he just like leaves Leon still handcuffed and just tosses the key.
Yeah, I mean he is a
Like
bit of an asshole, but
I did not get a good first impression from Lewis in this one.
I don't know. I actually did like Lewis in this one. That seemed more like because when you consider the way that Leon actually approached him for the first time, he didn't come off as like friendly trying to get information. No, he was a little aggressive,
Yeah,
hostile, off-putting when he first started talking to Luis. So I can kind of understand why he wouldn't want to
yeah.
stick around because it seems like Leon would just get mad at him and demand information angrily instead of having like a reasonable chat.
Nah, yeah. I think with when he found out that Lewis was working with Umbrella at the time, he was like I'm pretty sure that triggered a lot of PTSD for him.
Well, yeah, and it was also one of the things that Luis couldn't know that he was going to figure that out, but story-wise, if Luis was with Leon when that was figured out, it probably wouldn't it'd be tough to point to get past for
Yeah,
Leon. It'd be one of the things that kind of grinds the story to a complete halt as they have to resolve that issue.
Hmm.
But instead of when it's revealed later on in the story, when Luis actually tells him,
Yeah, I guess.
at that point they have a little bit of history and they've been through some stuff, so Leon would actually be more likely to probably forgive that
Like I said,
and move past it. Meanwhile, if it's a guy he literally just met and Hunnigan's like, "Oh yeah, he's working for Umbrella," he'd be like, "All right, we're putting you in handcuffs. You're gonna tell me all your shit right now."
So, as I said
It would
when I
not be
first
as
went
much
through,
of a it would not be as much of like a companion dynamic, I feel
no,
like, if Luis had stuck around.
yeah,
So, and I think Luis knew that. So he's doing his best to kind of keep Leon at a distance just cuz he understood the vibes that Leon was giving off, you know?
yeah. But like, so when I first played through this game, like I said, I didn't really like Lewis to begin with. But when we actually came full circle and he was talking about redemption and tried to just he said he led a pretty pathetic life and like he just hopes at the end of it he did some good. I was like, all right, you're cool in my book now. that's that's
It's interesting.
that's why I said it's a toss up, just because like first
It
like
honestly
from
kind
start to
of
finish in the original I liked him. In this one it was kind of like I didn't like him at the beginning and then like all right you won me over, bro.
which is kind of an interesting point because that's more of putting yourself in Leon's shoes, right?
Yeah.
Like the way you experience the character is more like the way he experiences the
Hmm.
character.
Yeah.
You can kind of it kind of helps you empathize more with the main character, which is a good story writing bit
Hmm.
when you can have the reader and the characters feel the same way about something. Is because that gives a connection, which is important when you're actually trying to tell a story, that you have a connection with the characters.
Hmm. All right, moving on to a more controversial one. Ada. The only reason I'm
Ada
saying
sucks. I'm
I know
sorry. She
that's
just does.
I know, and the only reason I'm saying it's controversial is because of the attack on I mean that's kind of cyberbullying and the cyber attacks on the voice actor.
I honestly
I
don't even
honestly
know all
don't.
that much about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean like people were just spamming her Instagram and spamming her Twitter, I guess, and saying that she ruined the game or something like that. I mean like I don't really think she did. And I
No,
honestly
I don't think it's a
I
I don't
don't
think
think
it's
it
a
was the voice
VA
actor's
issue. I think
fault.
it's a writing issue.
It was definitely a writing issue. It was definitely a director issue. The director
I mean,
really
it's just because
sucked
from what I've seen of
on
old
that one.
Ada, it's one of the parts of the game that doesn't translate so well into a more modern sort of audience, I feel
Hmm.
like. It's one of the parts of the game that has not aged as well. Like if you were to sit someone down and have them play old Resident Evil for the first time from like a modern lens, I feel like
They would have said
it would
Ada
it
is
would
very
be
sexualized in this game.
yeah, Ada is sexualized and it's kind of off-putting how sexualized she is.
I know. It's
Which sucks because it actually makes sense why she's sexualized because
yeah,
she's manipulating Leon into doing what she wants. Like she actually has a
exactly.
reason to act like that. But the
Yeah.
problem is it's still off-putting as a player,
Hmm.
even if it makes sense in the story. So I don't like the way they did it, but I understand why.
Yeah.
Like I get why they changed what they did, even if I don't like it.
I think if they were
It
going
could
to,
have, it
I
could have
think
been handled in more of a
they could have.
it could have been handled in a way that took a little bit more risk. Like obviously you
If
don't
there,
have
it would have been better if she wasn't so monotone, and it would have been better if there wasn't some kind of sexual innuendos in between their banter.
yeah, as long as the innuendo is subtle and it seems to be coming from Ada's side and it's not like a Leon hitting on pretty girl kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have been handled fine, but that's just kind of a what if. As it is, Ada doesn't have a whole lot of character in the remake.
No. And
She mostly just shows
I
up
also
to
don't like
kind
their
of
first
save Leon
reaction.
whenever he gets stuck.
I really don't like the. I really don't like Leon's first reaction to Ada returning either. Because like in two remake, like as far as he knew, she's dead.
If you think someone's dead and they suddenly show back up, that's the kind of thing that you would think has a little more of a
of
Wait,
a
what? Huh? How are you
wait
alive? Kind
what?
of,
Yeah,
react with a little more surprise and maybe even relief because, he actually likes Ada
yeah. So,
despite
anyways,
everything.
obviously going Ada's going to the original.
I,
Definitely
I would
preferring the
say
original.
so, yeah.
Yeah,
In the remake, she's just not
she's
very
so
interesting
bland.
as a character. She serves less as a character and more of like a plot device, like I said, to kind of just get Leon out of a jam whenever he gets into one.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on. Sadler, I'm going with original.
You think so? I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
he's not super
he's
interesting
not
in the
in.
remake.
He's not because he's on the sidelines too much. In the original, he was always present.
He has a lot of menace. It's just that most of what you see and hear from him
It's in the
in the remake
shadow. Like it's
is
so weird because like
most of what you hear is like through the Plagas hive mind or whatever you'd
mhm.
like to call it, the basically visions.
Yeah,
He's not actually there.
no,
I mean, luckily he does get more present toward the end of the game,
exactly.
but
But like the problem
but
is that it's so
the problem
awkward,
is the problem is that he's the big bad of Resident Evil 4. He's the main antagonist,
and
like
we don't see him
overall.
until like
Yeah,
chapter 14.
ultimately, if you want to have an overarching big antagonist, he needs to be introduced early and he needs to be present.
Yeah,
Where,
like in 4
at
when
least in the beginning, even if he disappears for a while, he needs to be very present at the start. So
yeah,
that
and so
you
in
know who
4,
you're up against. You need to
so
know why they're a bastard,
yeah,
and you need to have that,
in the
that
original.
motivation to take them down beyond just, ah, yeah, that's the bad guy. Go get him.
In the original, like when you first got Ashley out of the church, that's when he shows up and introduces himself. That's the
Oh
perfect
yeah,
point. That was the
that's a
that's
much better time because
yeah.
that's still at the part where you're trying to figure everything out.
I guess technically, like you're
So
shown
wait, when is the
you're
first time you actually meet him in the remake? Like see him
in
face
the
to
church
face in the
in the remake.
remake?
Oh, in the
Yeah.
remake. You don't see him face to face till chapter 14 when he goes and gets Ashley.
See, wait,
When you see that
really?
big yeah, think of it like that's the only time you actually see him. He does
Yeah,
not
I
leave that
guess.
island. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because before that, it's all just the hallucinations and
yeah.
visions.
Hallucinations, visions. We
Wow,
see him through Krauser's
that's
eyes.
actually really lame.
That
Thinking
is
about it.
that is really like thinking. I thought about it at the same time too. I was like, when I first played through, I'm like, so now we officially meet Sadler. This is dumb. Like the
Like, can you
big bad, and we don't see him
could
until
you
this step.
imagine if in the remake, right, instead of just having like a telepathic command to like go find the lost lambs, instead Sadler literally marches at the front of like the column of villagers,
Hmm.
kicks open that church door, goes in there, kind of looks around a bit and is like, they're still here somewhere, find them, and then he leaves. Like that
Yeah,
would be so much more impactful.
that would be because then you're
That
just
would
like,
be
okay, he's in
such a
charge.
better way to handle the character just because you get to
Yeah,
see more of him and he has more of that menace, that presence that villains kind of need to have to be threatening.
yeah.
But as it is, Sadler is never the main threat
If
in
anything,
the remake.
is shown to be Salazar is shown to is
And
like
we can get to Salazar in a minute, but
yeah
there's a lot to say about him.
yeah no but
Uh,
yeah Sadler like he just does not
yeah,
he doesn't
in
impact you
summary,
yeah
in
he
summary, he doesn't have enough impact on the story. He doesn't have a whole lot of menace as a villain. He does a lot of monologuing, but you don't really care because you don't see him as much of a threat because there's no real interaction with him.
yeah agreed.
So it's just honestly a little disappointing for him to be the main villain. If
Hmm.
anything, I would say that the main villain feels more like Krauser in the remake. He feels like more of the
I would
actual
go with that
threat.
one. I would go with that one. And his boss fight is harder than Sadler.
He feels like more of the at least for Leon, he's more of the main antagonist than anything else. And we can get to
So
that when we get to Krauser too, because
I was
that's
thinking
coming.
I think we just carry over to Krauser.
Yeah.
All right. So
So
Krauser, I want to go with. I really want to go with remake than the original.
yeah, Krauser is one of the characters that I actually quite like
I prefer his old voice actor.
in the remake.
I prefer his old voice actor. I prefer his old lines, but I do like the way he is presented in this game.
Yeah,
He,
because in the remake, the way he's presented, he toys around a lot with Leon, but that's mostly because they have a history together.
mhm.
He literally taught Leon how to be a soldier instead of just a police officer. He gave him all the training he has that's got him where he is. So it's the apprentice fights the master sort of dynamic that you see, and it's not an uncommon trope. You see that in a lot of places. But the way it's executed is still really well, because you can tell early on when Krauser's fighting, he's not really, as much as there is the fact that you can die, he's not going all out. He's not actually trying to kill Leon. He's playing with him. He's
Exactly.
messing with him. He's trying
And I
to
think
play the
that's
mental game
and like
because he's because he's obsessed with power. He wants to really see how powerful Leon is, and he wants to see what he can do. So he's messing with him for pretty much the first and second time you see him.
and I will say like I think his motivations are made much more clear in this game than it was in the original. At first, like so in the original, he didn't actually work for Sadler. Well, he was undercover working for Sadler, but he mainly worked for Wesker. Him and Ada both were working with for Wesker, not together, but as separate agents.
So in the original, was he still the one who ended up kidnapping Ashley?
Yes,
Like
yes.
he was, so that was the same.
That was how he got. That's how he bought his way in because, and it's kind of cool. This is probably the coolest line he ever said. He's like, much like you, I'm American, and so he was like,
Honestly, I
so
feel
I had
like
to
that
betray
makes a
my
little
own country
more.
in
I
order
feel
to
like
get
that
in.
makes a little more sense in the remake. I'll be honest.
I know because
It's
it,
like where Krauser has kind of gone through his arc, and since he dies, obviously, because he's a Resident Evil villain, all of them die at
yeah.
one point.
Well, I
It
like
he's kind of gotten to the point where he's gone through his arc so he can die. Like there's no further place for him to go. So it makes a logical conclusion that, Leon kills him because he wanted power after he went crazy in the jungle, and he found, I don't remember how he explained he found them, or if he did at all, but he found Los Illuminados and they gave him power, so he did their bidding.
so like he got injured in he got injured in Operation Javier. He couldn't use his left arm to fight anymore, and
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
so he was looking. So he was if I remember correctly, he was looking for any kind of work or anything he could do that was similar to what he was doing for the U.S. government, and that's how Sadler found him and offered a way to fix his arm and make it better.
Yeah, that the because one prominent comment that Leon makes is about his arm, so that makes a
Yeah.
lot more sense. I
Yes.
actually didn't know that.
Yeah. We don't. So, and also Operation Javier for some reason sounds like. I'm going to get sidetracked again if I talk about this.
Right,
It's
but
yeah,
but when it comes to Krauser as a character, his motivations make sense in
yeah.
the remake. I feel like
I don't
he's
think.
not just
Yeah,
trying
there's
to
always
buy his
something.
way in, but he's another pawn of Sadler. It's
Yeah,
just the problem is that he completely overshines him,
that's
just
something else
because he
Sadler
has
said
so
in the
much.
original too, which really pissed Leon off. He was like, and he was like, don't think it. I think in the original, like he was like, don't think that don't think that you're winning just because you took another pawn,
Yeah,
and
which
that just pissed him
in
off.
in the original that's not exactly true, but in the remake that is actually true, even though that's not the part where he says it.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah, Krauser as a character, very very menacing villain, the
very
kind
much
of
more
guy that you
impactful.
really want to take down, more impactful on the story. Uh Also, of course, his boss fight
I want to
and
say
the
his
whole
boss
sequence
fight.
leading up to it
Yeah,
is just amazing.
I
It
like.
gives him a whole lot of character. It really
They
makes
paid
him
a lot
feel
of.
like,
They did pay a lot of homage back to the
yeah,
original
like as a
in this one.
character, Krauser, he like once he learned that he was going up against Leon, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna test this motherfucker with some traps, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
lay out a whole labyrinth of shit that he has
He
to get through
fucking did
before he
too.
can even fight me." And it is a labyrinth of stuff. You know, there's the many points that he pops out from cover and tries to get cheap shots on you. There's mines, bear traps, turrets. There's
God,
the
fucking
points where
turrets.
he drops down behind you while you're distracted and tries to
Kill
lay
you.
on some damage. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's an enjoyable part, and I feel like it gives Krauser a lot more of a a maniacal evil sort of feeling where he
Yeah.
again it goes back to the concept of menace. He's menacing because he's the kind of threat where he's around, but he only jumps in when he feels like he has a chance of inflicting some damage, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, and then that kind of wraps up Krauser. So, moving on.
Yeah.
Salazar.
Salazar
Yeah.
is eh.
I want to give it to the original. I think the original one was better.
Salazar looks stupid, first of all. Let's just talk about
Salazar looked
that.
stupid in the beginning. You know what he was? You know the scruffy comic relief that most movies like try to use. That's what Salazar was supposed to be, but evil.
Yeah, they made Salazar in the remake a very serious kind of character
He wasn't
where
supposed to be.
he's supposed where they try to make him like a
Why do you think
menacing
he's short?
overarching thing
Why do
where
you think he's
he's
so short?
constantly
It's
basically the whole way he's like through the castle he's supposed to be the one that's like watching over you, taunting you as you fail. Oh, you seem to have lost your companion, Mr. Kennedy.
Yep.
You know, that whole vibe. But it's really hard because he looks so fucking goofy.
And that
Like
was the
his
thing. They
like
got
the way
that
his
nailed down
hair
in the
is and
original.
the way I swear to God, I showed Salazar to someone at one point and they said, "Who's that grandma?" I was like, "No, actually. That's not a grandma.
That's a 20. By the way, he's 20.
That is a
If you didn't know,
man right there."
that he's a 20-year-old. By the way, if you didn't know.
It's just the way they designed him. It's just I hate the design of him. Just
He's supposed to be like
flat out.
suffering from. He's supposed to be suffering from some sort of genetic disease that causes you to like age faster.
Yeah, but at the same time, he just they tried to make him menacing. They didn't give him a look that complemented that, and it
No,
doesn't
he
really
was far
work.
more If anything, he was far more menacing in the
The
original.
only time I actually enjoyed him as a character was during his boss fight.
I know.
And the problem with that is that you're too busy trying to fight the boss to really appreciate the characterization he gets there.
Yeah.
Where they try to make him more of the I mean obviously they sprinkle in some of the playful aspect of him where he's meant to be
I
you
know.
know he
Like
taunts
they
he
make.
taunts and he taunts and teases and he kind of takes it like a game.
Yeah. And they pay
But
homage, and and then she uses as another excuse to pay homage to the original, which I didn't really. I kind of like it, and I kind of don't because I'm like, all right, if you're going to do that, you should have just had him hijack the radio and just taunt Leon from the get go.
yeah, but yeah, the boss fight's the only time I actually liked him because he and Leon actually have banter instead of him just taunting Leon and Leon kind of just staring at him
Yeah.
angrily.
Anyways, the last one I really wanted to go over was Mendez, but at the same time, it's like, it's Mendez. I mean, he has a character. I mean, like he has more voice, he has more character this time. So obviously I'm going to go favor the remake, but like there was nothing really to talk about with Mendez
He's not
in the
really a
original.
character, honestly.
He's a
He's more of a
boss.
plot. He's a boss and a plot device above
Yeah.
all else. He like what by the end of it, unless you do like the extra reading that you can find, what do you actually know about Mendez that you don't have to read about? And the answer is not much.
Not really a lot. He doesn't get a lot. And once again, he does
He's
not.
a fanatic zealot who's serving in the cult's
Yeah.
capacity. That's mostly what he is. That's his whole
Fucking
character. That's all he does.
fucking Jehovah Witness the boss.
So
The
basically,
boss of
it's
Jehovah Witnesses.
the ultimate Jehovah's Witness.
He
Yeah.
does look like one, doesn't he?
I mean, he's got that traditional the traditional Catholic priest garb on,
All right, moving on.
which fits with the whole fanatic aspect
Yeah,
of
it
him. But
does
again,
too well.
he doesn't have enough character to really feel any particular way about it. He does what he's supposed to do for the story. He's a mostly enjoyable boss fight. he has some really cool sequences, like the escape sequence through the village, where he just walks slowly behind you the entire time, and if you stop for too long, or Ashley gets grabbed and run back to him, then it's over.
Yeah,
Which does make him extremely menacing, I will say.
that's a that,
More menacing than Sadler, funnily
that's
enough,
just
but menacing.
I did not enjoy that part too much. I mean,
No,
I did, but
that part is not necessarily enjoyable, but it's also, I don't feel like it's meant to be enjoyable.
well,
It's meant to make you really it's meant to make you fear Mendez, I feel like.
it's meant to make you
Because if
feel
you move
Mendez, but like they just do the same thing they did with Mr. X and two. That's all they did.
yeah,
They just copied and
yeah,
pasted Mr. X in that sequence. Which I mean, to
basically.
be
But
fair, if anything, he is a tyrant BOW. But anyways,
yeah, but ultimately I feel like yeah, it serves its purpose to make Mendez a menacing villain that when you kill him, you get that that hit of dopamine where you're like, yeah, fuck you, got you.
mm-hmm.
It
All
makes
right.
it more rewarding when you actually do get to kill him, which ultimately that's the main purpose, is that Mendez's death is the transition from one part of the story to another, and his character does serve that well enough, so there's not a whole lot else to say.
No. All right, moving on. So how'd you feel about the gameplay, gunplay, all the movement mechanics? Like, what all did you like about them?
I mean, so really the only baseline when it comes to
You had,
gameplay that
by
I
the
have to
way,
compare to is 5.
it's pretty similar. If anything, five just allows you
It's
to
pretty
just stalk
similar.
people.
However, the controls are significantly better than 5. Like by miles.
I was meaning towards the original, like original 4 to 5. Like they're pretty much similar, but like
Oh yeah.
if you're trying to compare them, so like
Yeah.
you can use 5 to compare these
Okay.
two.
Yeah. Because they weren't made super far apart, were they? So it makes sense
Five
that they
years.
control pretty similar. 5 years. Okay, that's a little more time than I thought it was.
Yep. Four came out in '04 or 2005, whichever one it was, and
Okay.
then
Yeah.
2009 is when 5 was released.
But anyways, I was just gonna say that the way the remake of 4 controls compared to 5 is so much more fluid, and it feels a lot better.
I don't think,
It maintains the sort of claustrophobic tanky controls that the older Resident Evil had,
yeah, because you can move
where
and shoot, but you're slow.
you feel limited even if you're not
Yeah,
completely helpless.
I
Because
do like
like
the
one thing I know about the original RE4 is that you couldn't aim and move at the same time, and
no,
that restricted a lot of what you could do. Where
but
it's
the
more you run, gain some distance, then you set yourself, turn around, and then you can shoot.
mhm.
So it complements the new style of gameplay a lot more to have a little bit more fluid controls, because the pace of RE4, the remake, is hectic. And
I will
that
say
creates a lot of the fear aspect, for sure, is that when you have so much shit going on all sides of you and it's all moving very quickly, that at least leans pretty good into the horror aspect of things.
this game relies a lot on run and gunning.
Yeah, it
That is the
does.
mechanic they favor. But when in the old one you could find some place where you didn't have to move around as much, and that was something that I kind of had to like abandon, was the idea of like finding a place where you could just like hold out, and have a wall or something like that, or escape route to your back, and not have to worry about them flanking you. That's not a thing in this one. You just have to like run and gun because like they don't stun as easily as they used to. The
Yeah,
Ganados.
that's the weird part about the new one, is I would say it's almost like a different style of horror,
I know, because like it's like
where
they just took a shotgun round to the face and they're not staggered. Are you serious? Fuck this shit.
because from what I can tell from the old Resident Evils, it's a slower kind of horror where everything is at a slower pace,
Yeah, this
but
one's
things are still
fast.
scary just because of you feel like you have less control and capability to fight it.
Yeah,
The new one is you're given a lot more agency as a player as to the way you can deal with things and the like options you have. But a lot of the fear and horror aspect comes from the fact that a lot of things are coming for you and they can get on all sides of you, and you have to try to stop getting pinned down.
yeah. That was one thing I
Which it's a
struggled
different
with.
kind of horror, but it's a horror that I like because the
Yeah,
first time I played through the remake, it was terrifying.
I feel like it's
The way
relatable.
that you could the way that you could get surrounded, and when you get surrounded, it's just so bad because enemies can attack and then it leads into another enemy attacking you from the other side,
Hmm.
and it's hard to defend against.
Like I said, like I was trying to say, like I feel like that's more relatable because like you can see that happening in real life so easily. I think that's why this is, and
Yeah,
I
if
think
you're
that's
fighting a whole village of people, like say at the start of the game, the
yeah.
number one concern is getting surrounded because when
Hmm.
you get surrounded, they can use their numbers against you.
Yep.
And I know that's probably one thing, without even having to look at it, that I can say is probably way faster paced than in the original, is that village sequence
Oh yeah. Like I said, like
where all the enemies are moving and converging on you, and they find ways to get on the other side of you and try to get in your way. Obviously, they don't know exactly where you're going to go, but sometimes, like when you go upstairs in the houses, there'll be enemies already there.
yeah,
They
they're
they
just like,
try
how
to
the
they
fuck
try
are you
to
here?
they try to stop you at all turns is the main thing,
Yeah.
and that gives them a whole lot more threat as an enemy. Because as much as enemies in the old RE4, I imagine they had plenty of menace and threat on their own. Uh, Individual enemies probably have a lot more actual threat in the remake, I would say.
Yeah.
Where it
I
feels like
will.
the
Oh,
mob sections, as you could call them, where you're trying to get through large groups of enemies, those feel a lot more hectic and a lot scarier than I would imagine they used to.
I will quote.
Like
I will
it's
quote the Axeman.
terrifying.
I will quote the Axeman on this one. They really could have, and they could have just done this again. They could have just kept the Ganados the same fucking enemies throughout the game, and just buff their health as you go along through the game, or just like make them like crazy, like Doctor Salvador, and just have those be the bosses throughout the game, and it would have been fine. It would have been perfect. But like they just kept, they once again just were like, nah, we're paying homage to the original.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
gonna give you the fucking we're gonna give you the
no,
castle
but
zealots.
gameplay wise, that actually serves a purpose. Is
Yeah.
the cool part because I've learned a lot from playing the absolute hell out of the game when it comes to the gameplay side,
Mhm.
and I've learned how to best deal with the enemies. And of course, in true survival horror style, the best way to deal with them is to not fight them and
Yep.
try to just get past them. That's always been the point. It's because, fighting enemies is always a drain on your resources, and you want to try to keep as much as you can for when the bosses come and you have to fight. You can't just run away.
Yeah.
Uh, the later sections of the game definitely play very differently to the early ones, just because of the different kinds of enemies
Yeah.
and the different weapons that they carry, especially when it comes to people like in the village, you don't see anyone with shields. In the castle, you see people with wooden shields. And then
Yeah.
on the island, you see people with metal shields. And you have
Yeah.
to deal with all three of them in completely different ways.
That's how it was in the
Because
original. Because
when they don't have a shield, you can obviously just do whatever you want. You can shoot them in the face, whatever. It's fine.
yeah. Yeah.
When they have the wooden shields, they also introduce the people who have the metal helmets and the face masks, so you can't shoot them in the face.
Yep.
So you can still shoot through their shields, but sometimes you can't shoot them in the head. And you
Yep.
kind of have to adapt on the fly to, recognize that and know that you have to change up your tactics instead of just shooting everything in the face. Which, for the most part of the early game, you're just headshotting everything where you can.
Yep.
And then when you get to the island, is where you really have to completely change your tactics because there's a lot of enemies with helmets. Some of them have chest pieces. Obviously, you can't shoot through the shields anymore when they turn to the metal ones. It does a good job of keeping you invested in the gameplay throughout the whole thing because the way you fight has to change. You can't just find out the one tactic and then use that tactic the whole game. So that variety of enemies actually makes the game a lot more engaging throughout the whole thing. And that's definitely a good thing
I
because
will
it
say
keeps
this:
you invested to the end.
the addition of stealth in this game was greatly appreciated. I really do enjoy the fact that they put stealth in this game.
Yeah, it is an interesting sort of addition. I feel like the later on you go, the harder it is to actually stealth.
Yeah. Like when you first
But
get to the island and like they're like, "Oh, you can stealth here," and then it's like, "All right,
yeah,
so you
getting through
try."
that section's very difficult, but
Yeah.
it adds a different way of playing if you're inclined, where you can try to take it really slow and sneaky and get through in a way that ultimately is safer because you don't have to directly fight enemies, but it's also probably more difficult just because of the time it takes, the patience, you have to find the right routes to get through.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting way to play. I feel like it maybe could have been a little more fleshed out. Maybe
Yeah.
give you something more to make it easier to stealth, like, I don't know, throw something to distract something, but then that would be less Resident Evil, so
Oh yeah.
it's hard to say if that would really be a good
That would
addition.
be more. You're going into the Last of Us there
The
territory.
point is gameplay wise, I feel like stealth is very it's limited in its usefulness. I feel like I didn't actually end up using stealth a whole lot.
I tried using stealth
Believe
as
me,
much
I
as I could.
tried.
Hmm.
Like on the first couple times through the game, I would try to be stealthy, but
In true
usually
Resident
it's
Evil
not the
5
most
fashion,
useful.
going guns blazing.
Yeah, you try,
And
and then you see someone sees you.
it's
The
like,
only
well,
thing that would make the stealth better is if take inspiration from different stealth games where enemies all have different detection statuses.
yeah.
So if one enemy sees you, but you like start to deal with them in a way that's quiet, like you run up and you start meleeing or you use the bolt thrower on them,
Hmm.
then they don't alert everyone for like a second or two after they see you.
Yeah.
Probably more like a couple seconds. Where it gives you
Taking
that buffer where you're detected, but you can still deal with it.
taking a lot of
Because
inspiration
that's a
from
big
Metal Gear there.
I mean, that's a core thing with when it comes to stealth mechanics in a lot of actual like games that focus on it.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing's true in a game that I played a lot called Dishonored, where
Yeah.
that's how the enemies worked, is that if one saw you, you had like a very brief window where you could deal with him, where, it would for all like achievement purposes and for the game's purposes, you did count as getting spotted, but you could still continue on in stealth after you dealt with him because he saw you, but he didn't get to tell anyone else that he saw you. So they don't know you're there. But it
Yeah.
feels like in the remake, when you're in stealth and you get seen, everyone immediately knows where you are.
Oh yeah.
There's no real buffer where you can deal with getting spotted. It's just if you're spotted, and now you're going loud. That's just
Yeah.
how it is. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different. And I feel like it makes the stealth a whole lot less rewarding just because,
Go.
one slip up and you gotta just do it the way you were gonna do it anyways.
Yeah. It's like,
So it's
try
kind
to
of
change
like
my
a
tactics, didn't work. All right, we go into blazing.
it's a little bit gimmicky, but it is a nice addition still because it gives you a little more variety on what you can do to handle things.
Yeah. So honestly, honestly, I really do like it. The only thing I don't like in this one is the new mechanics and them not working properly sometimes. Like, when you get prompts and you try to press the button, but like it seems like it failed or like it didn't register. I don't know
Oh
if it's
yeah,
like
that's a big issue.
like
Sometimes
I don't
they're a
know if
little
like you were facing
finicky
the
when you
wrong
try
way.
to
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know if we're
yeah, so
facing the wrong way or if we're just like not hitting it at the correct time or if there's like if it's a timing issue or if it's like a you have to be facing a certain direction. But like I played on PlayStation and I was getting L1 or I was getting circle and I swear I hit it and then it's like it didn't register. I still got hit.
yeah, so one good example of that I can kind of talk about a little bit is when it comes to the it's the Gyarados, the blind ones, right?
Yeah.
Well, so in the game you have the ability with your knife when they don't know where you are is they give you the ability to go up behind them and stab them in their weak point to deal some damage and stun them and give you a chance to really lay on some damage. And in theory that sounds good. And it is good when it works. It's just it doesn't work properly all the time. So there'll be some times where they're standing in place, turning around like they're looking for you, but they don't know where you are. So you start to approach them, only for them to randomly spin around and smack you.
Yep.
That's one issue. Other issue is when they're doing their like turning animation where they're quote unquote looking for you. Uh, if they're in that animation, sometimes you just can't stab them in the back, and you have to wait for that animation to be over. Which, when you combine that with the weird random swipe they can do where they spin all the way around, that starts to become an issue because you sneak up to them with the expectation that they don't know where I am, I can stab them, right?
Yep.
And then instead, you have to wait behind them for a few seconds, only for them to do. They just decide that it's time to do the random swipe, and then they hit you. And you stagger back. You're not at their back anymore. They're facing you. Thankfully, they still don't know you're there, but you've taken a
Somehow.
good bit of you've taken a good bit of damage. You've lost your opportunity, and you're kind of just a little bit miffed about it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those. It's just a good example of
The
like
cuts were so clean they didn't
some
even feel the resistance.
yeah. But that's just a good example of when it doesn't quite work properly and it's frustrating, and that's not the only time that sort of thing happens, but it's a pretty good illustration of why it's frustrating.
Yeah.
because
I,
you don't because you don't know what to expect from the game in terms of like what you can do as a player sometimes.
yeah.
Like most things work pretty well, but when they don't work like that, it's ugh.
I feel like that's gonna be games in general from now on, though. I mean, like they're gonna add in new
I
mechanics.
mean, yeah, that is a problem with gaming in general, but just
Yeah.
when you take it in just the specific context of this,
Yeah. Like
in
I
a
said,
game where you have to focus a lot on resource management,
there's
not knowing what the game is going to do in response to you is always a problem
yeah.
because you need to be able to predict the future at least very short-sightedly. You need to be like, okay, so here's my opportunity to deal damage. I can go in, I can deal my damage, I can get out, and I'm not going to get hurt for trying to
Allegedly.
deal with it this way.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Anyways.
Like,
Well,
obviously, there's, ways to get around the sort of issue with that, but yeah.
yeah. As I said, like I like the new mechanics. I just wish they worked at 100% of the time. But I mean, like that's never going to happen in the history of ever.
No, but
It never
when you
has and
get
never will.
when you get comfortable enough with the mechanics that you feel like you have an understanding of how they work, and then they suddenly don't,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
start to question what you actually understand, and you don't. It introduces uncertainty in a game where when you act, you need to act with certainty, and you can't just hesitate and fuck around.
Yeah. Well, not going through not going not going through that. I can't talk for some reason. Okay. Moving on. New all right.
Anyways,
So this one's kind of different because like it's not something you would really have a comparison to, but like I'm just going to list off some stuff. How do you like the new treasures? How do you like the treasure system? The way the treasures worked with the gems and the different ones you can inlay in them?
I honestly,
Because that's not
I
how it worked in
really,
the original.
yeah, I really liked that though. It
I enjoyed
honestly
it.
added a very interesting dynamic into the game where you had to take stock of what you had and kind of make decisions based on like your
I really
resources, you know?
enjoyed how
Like
they
for
were.
instance, you find something that needs two square gems and two circle gems,
Yeah.
and you only have maybe like one of each. You have like a two of different colors. Then you get to like the decision making. You're like, okay, do I put the gems I have in this and sell it now because I really need the money for resources? Or do I try to hang on to this and maybe I could get better gems and I could make it, sell it for more? Again, that adds to kind of the dynamic nature of the gameplay where you can make decisions and play the game differently based on like how many gems you've bothered to go get and things like that.
Yeah. I really
I,
enjoyed that they were loose. That they were loose loot. The gems were kind of loose loot. You could find them like
Yeah, you find them
through.
on certain enemies or when you
Yeah,
defeat
like
certain strong enemies.
the bulls, or the regenerators later on, Iron Maidens.
Yeah, it's another aspect of decision making where you can choose to fight more regenerators and get more gems, or you can skip them because they take resources to fight and just move on.
Yeah. Aside from the one they absolutely have to fight. Well, there's actually one regenerator you have to actually fight, and then two, and then an Iron Maiden you absolutely have to fight too. What was the other one? What about the request? Like, I know the blue. I said this multiple times. I really got sick and tired of the blue medallion thing after the castle. It was so repetitive.
Some of them are interesting. The blue medallion thing overstays its welcome, definitely.
Very.
Just because
it was
you have
in the
to do it.
original.
It's like 3 or 4 different instances of the blue medallions, which when you do the same thing so many times, it gets very repetitive.
I will say I'm glad they're static spawns. I will say I'm glad they're static on where they're placed, no matter what difficulty you go.
Yeah,
through.
that is a good
at
thing.
least for what I've seen. But like,
yeah, they're always in the same spots so that you don't like it rewards your game knowledge, because once you know where they are, you don't have to go up front, get the request, then come back and backtrack to get them.
Yeah.
You can just shoot them on the way.
Go. Yeah, do it as you go. I will say that I was kind of like, oh cool, that was in the original, that was cool, and then I'm like, Jesus fuck, how many times are you gonna fucking do this shit? We only did it once in the original, well, twice in the original technically, because there was 15 medallions, there was 7 at the farm, and 8 at the quarry in the fish place, quarry church area. That was
I will say, yeah, besides the medallions though, and as annoying as it was to do the same thing over and over again, there were a lot of the requests that were really interesting.
I like the bounties.
Like
I really like the bounty ones.
Like go find the lunker bass, go find the golden egg. It encouraged you to explore a bit, get to know the map, because they had those open bits where you could actually kind of roam around a little more, and it's not as linear.
Yeah, I will say the one that I thought was disappointed in was the one where, like, I think it's the very last bounty one, where you have to go fight that Iron Maiden that's just hanging around in the tanks.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I was kind of disappointed in that one, because I'm like,
I hate fighting Iron Maidens anyways. So
I hate fighting. I do too, but I was thinking like, oh man, this one's gonna fucking suck. It's gonna be a bitch to get through. I killed it with like 10 rounds of sniper rifle ammo, and I'm like, how? Why is this one easy?
Yeah, that one, I don't know. The quote unquote strong enemies I wasn't really huge on, because they were just bigger and tankier versions of enemies that already existed. They're not.
There's only 2 though, isn't there?
There's 3.
There's the dog.
There's the
Iron
wolf
Maiden.
in the village.
Wolf in the village.
Like the stronger wolf. There's the golden armor in the castle.
Oh yeah, the golden armor. That's what I was forgetting.
And then there's the Iron Maiden in the labs.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 you get. But all of them aren't like a completely different enemy or like a mini boss. They're just...
At least they didn't give us an El Gigante.
It's more of the same.
At least it wasn't like oh yeah, go fight this El Gigante.
I mean, even that wouldn't be bad though, assuming they did something to make it more than just, oh, you just fight it again. I don't know. I feel like with those, it's kind of a missed opportunity, because they could have put in optional content that's very
go
different.
fight Mr. X.
I don't know. Just you're remaking the whole game. Design something new and interesting that fits with the game's mechanics. The way it's more hectic and fast. Make something that is like, I don't know, like a swarm boss. Like, it makes a whole bunch of weak enemies that you have to deal with, or like, I don't know.
You mean like Sadler with the final boss?
No, not like that. That was awful. But I don't know. It just feels like a lost opportunity, because it feels like it could have been used to do something new and introduce something that is a little more different.
Yeah.
Give a little more variety to the enemies that are in that area. Yeah. I don't know. I understand why they did it the way they did, but it just feels like it's meant for you to waste some time. To me,
it's that way that way they had a more reason to get you more spindles.
Get more, get you more spindles.
I think
so you can go and upgrade stuff more and
buy your exclusive tickets. Use that to get your exclusive tickets. Don't pay $3 to get an exclusive ticket.
Never, ever.
No, don't fucking do that. It's not worth it. Like, at least you spend like 4 hours in the video game and you got enough for an exclusive ticket. Trust us.
Yeah, but the requests that did things that were different than what you would normally do, like I said, like finding the lunker bass, golden egg early on,
Yeah.
later on,
The fetch me quest.
there was the one with like the Raven's Nest where you had to
Oh
retrieve
yeah,
like a certain emerald.
and that's another thing I like about
There
those
was the
ones.
one where you had to
You
go
can do
throw
them
an
early.
egg on Salazar's portrait, which
Oh, I love
was
that one.
that's a funny one.
Yeah, I will say like I
Or
think
weird stuff like going and smashing the emblems on the twins' tombstones, where you have to kind of think about like which one of these would be the twins.
yeah,
Things that stuff that's different like
I
that.
totally
It
just
makes
shot out
sense to
every
make that
single
side
tombstone.
content.
I totally just shot out every single tombstone until I had one
Yeah,
or two.
there's a way to figure it out, but you know,
Yeah.
the whole
Uh,
point is that when it's side content that's separate from what you're supposed to be doing, if it's different, it's usually good as long as it's fun and different. It's cool because it's optional. You don't always have to do it.
yeah.
But at the
So
same time, if it's optional, but it's just the same stuff you've been doing, I'll be honest. I've played the game a lot of times. I've only ever fought the strong enemies once. I fought them once each, and that was it. I was like,
yeah,
nope,
that's
I
about.
don't want to. I don't want to do that again.
I want to do this shit again. Yeah, I done that. I did that once, and that was my second playthrough when I was going through on normal. And I was like, I think I'm good. I'm good. I got like all the exclusives I could really use, and like all my money now.
I
Like
mean, even in a new game, it's not worth it. Is like
no,
a. It can't be like a speed run thing where you want
no.
you want more resources
That's
before
the
you
only
get
thing
the
I
S
would ever
plus
start.
because you have to massively backtrack for each and every one of them. By the time you get
Exactly.
the quest, it's way past where you were.
hmm And that's the thing I would honest. And that's the thing. Like if I ever did go through it again, it would be honest another second playthrough probably. If I was trying to like absolutely max out everything again for some reason.
Which, like, why would you? It's not a game where it's really meant to do that.
No, it's not like
Funnily
five.
enough,
It's not like five. Five. You have you have more incentive to do it. That will do that.
no,
Do that for.
with the remake, it's more based around
You get one solid
you know
playthrough, max everything out, and do everything in the
you can
fucking
get a
game, and you
solid
call it good.
playthrough. You can get up to an S rank on all of the difficulties.
Yeah, the only reason you
and
start a new
then
game is to
and
get an S
then you go
plus.
for the the S plus. That's
Yeah,
really the goal.
yeah.
That's what you're striving for most of the time.
Which I want to say, like the reason but I think we're getting off topic here again, a little bit. All right,
A
so
little bit, yeah.
yeah. The only other new aspect of the
Just
game,
refocus things a little bit.
yeah, only other new aspect I can really think of is possibly the repair system for the knives and the body armor. Which I mean, like, it's I enjoy the fact that there's more money sink in this game because before, like, it was just like I could just hoard all my money. I know where all the
Yeah.
money spawns are. I know where the fuck all the treasure is. Now it's
And it
like,
also
I gotta
and
think about what
also
I'm doing.
also the repair system kind of incentivizes you to play well.
Yes,
Because if you're like, oh, I've got armor, I can just stumble around and get hit all I want now. No, you can't.
absolutely
You
not.
still have to pay attention and be careful because if you're not also going and getting treasures, you're not going to be able to afford to repair it and also upgrade your guns.
Yeah, there is more. You really
So it
want to
adds
save
in
that
that
armor for
kind
the
of
boss fights.
yeah. Ultimately, if the game rewards you for playing well, that's a good thing. And the body armor and knife systems are a reason that it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because most often you use those to avoid taking as much damage. You use a knife to get out of enemy grabs faster and deal some damage to them. You can use it to finish off Ganados before they turn into the Plagas.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But that's all. It's again that feeds back into the cycle of the resource management aspect of the thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big part of that survival action horror aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah. Next point I was going to do, we kind of already touched on this one. It was enemies, mobs, bosses, like all together. How do they hold up against new players and vets alike? But like we already talked about that one a lot. I feel.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we can really cover. I mean, like I thought they were decent.
Yeah, for the most part, there was an enemy that I actually hated to fight, except Iron Maidens. That's the only one
Iron
I
Maiden has
hated to
always
fight.
sucked. All right, no one actually ever once said Oh boy, I really like fighting these Iron Maidens. Let me tell you, if
I
anything,
mean,
they're
with
fucking
them,
worse than this
the only
one.
problem is just the fact that they get the ranged attacks where,
Yes.
you'll have a distance from them and you'll be shooting them in their weak point.
Also,
And then they just throw a spike at you and
whoever
stagger
you
you
are at
so
Capcom
that they can
that
get
thought,
close.
whoever you are at Capcom that thought, oh, we're going to make the Regenerators and the Iron Maidens run at you. Fuck you. Absolutely, fuck you, man. That's
Okay,
such bullshit.
Iron Maidens, yeah, that's bullshit. Regenerators, it kind of makes them more of a threat,
It makes them.
which I like. And it
They've
also
always been a
fits.
threat.
No, but it also fits the more frantic style of gameplay
Yeah.
that the remake seems to be going for.
Yeah.
Where everything is a threat, everything is fast. It's coming at you, and you need to move.
But yeah. Like I said, we talked a lot
Which
about that. We
overall,
talked a lot
it
about
makes
the bosses too.
yeah.
So
So I think there's not a whole lot more to be said about that.
all right. Moving on. Difficulty. I thought this game was really difficult.
The game is hard. The game is really hard.
Yeah, I played through. Do not any veterans do not look at the hardcore and be like, oh, because I played through Resident Evil, I'm getting a fucking no.
No,
That's a trap.
the
It's a fucking trap. None of our
everything about
strategies
the
work.
game,
It's a completely
everything
different
about
game.
the game is so much faster, and the way you fight things is very different, even
Yes,
just compared to the way you fought things in 5. Everything's more fluid and mobile, and
like there's
I could say it 1,000 times, but it's all fast. All the enemies are fast.
exactly like if you
Like
played
if you're getting distance, they'll run after you and they'll close the gap quickly.
like if you're
Things
those
like that.
people that played the demo night and day until it was released, you probably could do hardcore. But if you're not one of those, and I wasn't one of those because I kind of got bored of the demo like pretty fast. Like
It's interesting for a limited amount of time.
I know, like 10 minutes, like all you do is play the game for like 10 minutes, and then like
It's a great demo though.
It's a good. I mean, no, it's a great demo. I love the demo, but like the problem
It shows off the difficulty of the game, if nothing else, so that
yeah,
you kind of know what you're getting into.
I know. But yeah, I will say this:
Yeah.
do not go into hardcore thinking that you're going to absolutely destroy everything. You're not.
No.
It's a completely different game, completely different mechanics, and I was not prepared. I will say this: I really wish I went and did it on normal first to learn the game.
Yeah, it's a very different, faster paced experience that requires a completely different strategy to get through.
Exactly, and I played through fucking 4 like 7 times, like 70 times or some shit like that. I played the shit out of this game. Like when my top 3 games on PlayStation 2, if PlayStation 2 actually was able to track like what your overall playtime, like where your games, most of your playtime went into, my top 3 games would definitely be Star Wars Battlefront 2, Resident Evil 4, and Kingdom Hearts 2. I played the absolute shit out of those games.
Yeah, and even then, when you went in with the mindset of the old game, you frequently found yourself getting surrounded or things running up to
Yeah.
you quicker than you were expecting.
I mean, you could see it on stream. I was panicking the fuck out of. I was like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
This doesn't work anymore."
Which it makes for a very different kind of horror, but
No,
it also
yeah,
makes the
I
game
got
significantly
scared.
more
Shit.
difficult.
I got.
It's not scary because you feel like you can't do as much. It's scary because it feels like you have to do a lot more.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Like you gotta learn how they.
You're
fight.
not restricted by the game as much. You're more restricted by your own capability to deal with it.
I know you gotta. There's a large learning curve in this game. I'm gonna say that because like you gotta learn the windups of everyone's attacks to learn how to parry it right. You gotta learn how to perfect parry.
It's sad to compare everything to Dark Souls in the modern day, but it is a lot like Dark Souls in that way, where you got to learn their patterns.
I never played Dark Souls, so I was compared to God of War.
I mean, that works too, but
yeah, that's how.
you got to learn. You got to learn
like,
the parry timings. You got to learn what attacks you can parry and can't.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of attacks, so you're just like, oh, I can parry this, and it's like, oh no, you can't.
Oh yeah, on the list of dumb things that you can parry, while we're still talking about difficulty,
the chainsaw.
it might make your life to know. That one's obvious because it gives you a prompt.
Yeah.
The broadswords from the suits of armor, you can parry those.
Yeah, with a fucking survival knife. I was like, how does this work?
And then you can parry Krauser's massive bone blade arm, somehow.
Like that one makes less sense. I can at least
You can parry maces with your knife.
That one
So
doesn't make sense at all. No, if anything, your knife should be shattered.
so it's one of those things where if you go in and you're trying to just learn as you go, you would just kind of assume that you can't do that, and it makes your life more difficult because, it wouldn't make sense to try it.
The only reason I could see like,
Or while you didn't know the timing, you tried it and it didn't work, so you assumed you couldn't,
mhm.
which is probably extremely likely because the parry timings are pretty tight on the subject of
Oh yeah,
difficulty.
oh yeah, they are really tight.
I mean, it's somewhat lenient on like standard and hardcore, only somewhat.
When you
You
get into
still have to you still have to press the button at generally the right time, but if you like get into the world of professional where you can only perfect parry, those
I'm not
windows
looking
are
forward to that
extremely
one.
tight.
I'm really not looking forward to this.
Like
Uh,
you have to really know the game before you
yeah.
can get to the point where you can pull those off. Though luckily for uh to make it a little easier on the player, those actually make different sounds when you get a perfect parry, I think.
Yeah. So then that kind of covers difficulty. Moving it.
Yeah.
Final point. Well, final question, I guess. And I don't know. This is kind of just a general question, but is this still the best Resident Evil? Because like everyone says this is the best one. Everyone. There's without a doubt.
Uh,
This is the best.
I can tell you I enjoyed it a whole lot more than I enjoyed 5 overall.
I know because we
I
haven't replayed 5 yet, and you played this
in
game like
terms
how
of
many times?
yeah. I mean, part of that is because in 5 there's issues with the AI, but you know,
Yeah, we got to go through it.
there's
We got to go through 5 again. You and me, like,
yeah, when it comes to just straight up enjoyment, uh I feel like the older Resident Evils kind of have their low points.
mhm.
They're not they have the points where you're like, "Oh, I just got to get through this part and then I can get back to the part I actually like doing." But
this one, this one,
with
it
4,
doesn't
there's
actually
not a
feel
whole
like
lot of
that.
that. It doesn't have a whole lot of points where you're just like, "Oh, just got to get through it." It's
Exactly.
points where you're like,
The
"Well,
castle
I
area.
don't enjoy it this as much as the other parts, but I can,
Yeah.
I can
Like
still
the
have some
castle
fun."
area in this one is a lot more shorter, and I enjoy that part because like in 4 when you get to the castle, it takes you like 3 hours to get through the fucking castle. I'm not joking. It takes a while. Like you're going through different rooms, you're going all around the castle, especially if you're trying to get the free broken butterfly. Like you have to backtrack halfway through the castle to go get that thing with Ashley. Then you have to go and then it's just a whole fucking thing. And then you go to the minecart section. It's just like fuck me, bro. I just want to get through this shit. And then
When it comes to maybe the only parts of the game that I don't enjoy, the minecart section's probably pretty high on that list.
I don't like that one either. I think that one was like
There's
I really
again,
hate the fact
it
that they
goes
made an
back
achievement
to
around that one too.
it pretty much just goes back to the one thing I really like in games is when games give you choices on how to deal with things.
Mm-hmm.
In the minecart section, there is only one way to deal with things. It's to lean to stop you from dying or shoot. That's it. That's all
Yeah,
you can do.
yeah.
Like obviously there's some instances where you can shoot explosives to maybe make it a little easier on you, but no. There's not a whole lot of choice beyond that.
No
So
parrying the
it's pretty
arrows.
much just playing a rail shooter that doesn't change every time you play it. So
Also, why the fuck
shoot
is Leon
you
the only
shoot
one shooting?
yeah, I don't know. I guess Luis gave him his pistol because you always get a red 9
Yeah,
during that segment, even if you don't have one. So,
that's weird.
yeah, I don't get it.
That's so weird.
But yeah, it's the one maybe. So to make a comparison, basically the like middle to back third of Resident Evil 5, where you have to deal with the enemies who shoot at you. That is pretty much condensed down into the minecart section in Resident Evil 4. Everything else is okay.
I will agree with that statement.
Where it's still a part you don't really enjoy, and you're
I do
like,
not
okay,
like playing Gears of War.
let's just get this over with.
I do
But at
not.
the same time, at
Yeah.
least in Resident Evil 4 remake, it's short, and
Yes.
you get through it in like maybe 5 minutes.
It's literally like the shortest rough part of your life.
But then after that, you go back to the fun bit, and and you go through a short bit, and then you get the first Krauser fight where you have to learn how to use the knife, which when you know how to use it, that's probably one of the more fun parts of the game where you just
Oh yeah.
parry, slash, and kick his fucking ass. So that kind of makes up for it. But overall, yeah, the verdict on satisfaction with the remake, I would say probably like an 8 out of 10 overall.
I'm gonna top your rate at 8 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 because Rust in classes. But I'm not saying this game's perfect. This game has its flaws, it has its issues. But overall, I think one, they paid homage to the original very well. They kept the and like they made strides to improve the problems that were present, and they really did do it. And the only problems I really have are just the mechanics not working properly, and there's not really a pacing issue either. I don't really have a problem with the pacing of the game. I think it's just I think they did a really good job. But then I'm coming from like rust into glasses, so probably Rommel's ranking is gonna
Yeah,
be more fair.
I can explain why I rated it like that because
Oh yeah, I was gonna let you.
to summarize the positives, the gameplay in almost all aspects is extremely tight, extremely fun. There wasn't really a boss fight that I had that I was like that sucked. No, all of them are pretty good. They all do things differently. They make you have to change your strategies. You have to, having the knowledge of how to deal with them is a bonus to you. You can't just improv it and hope it works. You gotta think, which ultimately that's what makes it not just a schlocky action survival game, is because it also still makes you think. You can't just go in and do whatever you feel like. The only problem with it is that the story is just not very engaging. I don't really give a fuck about the story. Like the first time through, it was
I know.
okay. It was fine. Like it's the story. It works. You know how many times I rewatched the cutscenes after the first one? Once when I streamed it. Every single other time, skip, skip, skip.
Yeah, there's
Don't
not.
care.
You're also trying to speed
That's
run
the
through.
only. That's the. I mean, even when I'm not speedrunning, I just don't. I don't care. The story is not compelling enough to where I can watch the cutscenes and feel any sort of emotion about any of it. I'm
I don't know,
always
man.
just like,
Lewis's death got
okay.
me in the feels.
Okay, yeah, Luis's death is maybe the one bit of cutscene that I was like, oh no.
That and Krauser's death. Like Krauser's death, I got to rewatch too. I was like, God damn it, my boy.
Okay, I'll give you that one too. But for the most part, I
Nah,
just the
even
story
the
is just
ending,
not.
even the ending, I'm just like, nah, I don't really care. Like, even, and it's kind of sad to be like that
It's
too
making
because
my point weak that I have to add the third exception of like the one really good pun that Leon makes in the whole game, where he's like, "I'll give you a holy body," and then
oh
fucking
yeah.
stabs him. That's maybe the one part that I was like, "Yes, Leon, yes, good,
Finally, we
do
get
it."
something. We get something out of you.
It's just the
Similar
problem is,
to
yeah,
no thanks,
distractions.
bro.
Distractions aside, the story overall not great.
No.
Not really huge on it. But the gameplay makes up for it in a way that it's enjoyable to replay the game. So, it's still a good game. Not a masterpiece, but it's a good game. And you can't ask a whole lot more than that. I would really much rather the gameplay be good than the story be good and the gameplay be terrible. Because
Mhm.
then you wouldn't want to play it again.
Yeah.
And a main part of the Resident Evil games is they want you to be able to go back and play them again.
That's the
That's
entire
why they
reason for the
have the
ranking
whole
system.
yeah, that's why they put the ranking system in. Is because they want you to be able to go back, play it again, enjoy it again.
I mean, how many times have you gone through and then you're just like, I can do better than this?
Literally the first time I played the game. Like when I finished the game and I saw the results screen come up, I was like, oh no, this won't do.
It's like this won't do it all. How many
And then
times have
I
you played?
and
But how many times have you played through this game?
I have played through the game. I'm trying to count. So I did once on standard, once on hardcore, then I moved up to professional.
Mm-hmm.
Then I
Then you
did
did a
then
S
I did
plus.
in
Then you did
assisted stupid meme speed run where you just sprint through the whole game. standard speed run where you do most of the same, and I got S pluses on those.
I was in Discord with
Then I
him.
went through one more time on professional. So that
I
would be 7 times,
yeah,
6 times of going on the seventh. So I've played a lot of the video game.
I played a lot of the video game. So I was actually on Discord with him when he first got to the Salazar's right hand when he was going through his assisted play run, and he's like, "Ah, fuck, I don't have like a Magnum or something like that," and I'm like, "You don't need it." He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. This is assisted." I forget what it was
Yeah, the
that
game.
you're like you're kind of nervous about the fight. I'm like, "You're gonna be fine. It's assisted," and he's like, "Oh yeah, right."
Yeah, it's easy to forget because literally before that, I had come off of doing it on professional, where it
Yeah.
was hard. He's extremely tanky, extremely fast. He hurts you a lot. Yeah, no, it's just a good game. I don't know what there's not a whole lot more to say about it. Good game, very good gameplay, very tight. Lackluster story, only a couple real memorable characters.
Yeah. The so
But it's one of those games
the
that the
original is so
replayability and the way the gameplay is at least going to make it live on a bit. Like, you know, the internet's not already tired of it. People are still
yeah.
playing, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
good sign because it means that people have played through once and they wanted to play it again. Which
And
if your game does that, it's a good game.
and also there's going to be the longevity of the fact that they got more content coming out for it. We just got Mercenaries dropped on Friday, and then we're supposed to get separate ways here soonish, I think.
Yeah. And you know, I've already gotten S plus plus on all of the stages with all of the
I
characters.
figured you had by now.
Yeah, I did
I
it.
have all S's on everyone.
I'm a little disappointed that there's no reward for doing that, honestly. I felt
I
like
am
there should have
too,
been.
because there was in the original. It was the
It seems
hand
like there
cannon.
should be something. I got the hand cannon at some point while I was playing
When you
Mercenaries.
got
I don't
all
remember
S's on
why.
Leon. When you got all S's on Leon on all maps.
Oh,
That's when you get the hand cannon. So I'm like, what the fuck? Also, I feel like Mercenaries is just easier in this one than it is in the original. But like Mercenaries, like in this one, you increase your time by killing enemies, and like in the original, it didn't do that.
but yeah, when it just comes to the game, play it through once, play it seriously, play it slowly, play it like you're taking it extremely seriously.
And then play it, and then
Then after that, try to play it faster, improve your skills,
mhm.
and just have a good time with it because it's the kind of game where you can.
Yeah, that's something else. Like it's not a sandbox, but it kind of feels like that because there's so many different ways you can play the game.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps with the pacing of the game that there's the sections where if you want to, you can go back and explore the level a little more thoroughly, go back and get treasures that you couldn't access before, you know,
Yeah.
things like that. Especially if you're newer to the game and you're kind of struggling because you don't have the resources that you want.
Or you're trying to do what I'm going to try to do and just complete every single challenge in the game.
Yeah, it's good for that, and those sections help with the pace a lot because
Mhm. Like I said, like I don't really have a problem with the pacing of the game. I feel like its pacing is pretty good. Like I said, when you spend like 3 hours in that godforsaken castle in the original, that's where the pacing dragged it. It was just like, God damn, I'm tired of fucking seeing these goddamn paintings.
yeah, when you get into the game and you can't tell at what part they were trying to buy more gameplay time, that's a very good thing. Because there's a lot of games that happens where you get into it and you're like, okay, so here was the section where they were like, oh no, the game's too short. We got to put some more time in, some more padding.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Resident Evil 5, because you did that.
Oh yes, you did. You can't even deny it.
But in
There
Resident Evil
was no
4,
reason the ship took that long. There was no reason the lab took that long.
but when it comes to Resident Evil 4 remake, I couldn't tell you what part that was trying to be padding because I don't know if any of it was trying to be padding.
I don't think any of it was. It seemed to be pretty clean cut.
Which when that happens, that means that, you know, they planned it out well, the game came out the way it was supposed to, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was happy with it.
Yeah. I mean, they even made backtracking in this one too because like they gave you that cart.
And you could also open up the gate shortcuts to make going
Yeah.
back through certain sections easier.
Yes. Being able to open locked doors is a godsend in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I could keep saying it till the cows come home, but good game. If you haven't
Good
played
game.
it, you should play it at least once because it's
Yep.
good.
I would highly
Just
recommend
go in
anyone.
looking for an enjoyable gameplay experience. Don't take the story too seriously. Don't get upset with it.
I will say this: like anyone that goes in there that is looking for a good Resident Evil game, this is definitely one. Or just go buy the original. I mean, the original is like only $7.
All right, get them both, play them both,
Get them
see
both, play
which
them
one
both.
you like better yourself.
You're gonna like the remake better just because it's easier to play.
More than likely, yeah.
Like if I go back to the original, it's literally just going back for nostalgia.
Because when it comes down to it, when you replay a game, you're looking for the gameplay, and
Yeah.
I think that's one thing the remake definitely holds over the original is that the gameplay is a lot more enjoyable just overall.
Yep. So once again, in this generation of Resident Evil, I would still say 4 is probably the best. It's better than 2 in my opinion because it allows you to do more. It's better than Village and 7, which I mean,
Huh.
like objectively speaking, 7 was needed because like the series was getting
Yeah,
stale.
as far as I understand it, 7 was kind of a return to form,
Yeah.
basically.
In my opinion, it's better than 7 because I didn't really like the first
Yeah,
person
because the franchise started survival horror, then it started doing
action,
whatever the hell happened with like Resident Evil 3. Then it leaned into the
action,
action side with Resident Evil 4.
which saved the series, and then they
But
copied
then they
it.
took it too far
They
when it
took
went to like
all
5 and
right. So
6.
five, I will say, could have been better. Was not where they overstepped. Where they overstepped was 6. 6 was just a Gears of War clone. They just made it into a Gears of War clone.
I don't know. I can kind of make a comparison. It's not entirely accurate, but I can kind of get my point across with it. So you know like the Elder Scrolls series, right?
Yeah, who doesn't
There's
know?
Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, right?
Yeah,
I feel like Resident Evil 5, as much as it's not as good as Oblivion, is kind of the same way to the Resident Evil series, if that makes any sense. Where it's like there
I
are
thought
some things that are
Oblivion.
done pretty well and there's a lot of cool stuff, but it's kind of where the cracks are starting to show that they're not going in the correct direction. So like, Oblivion was Bethesda taking Morrowind and being like, okay, some of these systems are complicated, hard to understand, very reminiscent of older RPGs, like the old Fallout games, where there were mechanics that didn't entirely make sense, but they're rooted in like the old sort of tabletop games, right?
Yeah,
So they tried to dumb it down a little bit and they got into kind of a sweet spot where people were like, okay, yeah, this is pretty enjoyable. It's a lot easier to understand. The mechanics make more sense. I get it, and it's fun, and it's neat. But then after that, they were like, okay, so dumbing it down worked. So let's dumb it down even more and make it more accessible and where you don't have to think about it as much. To where then you get Skyrim, where basically the whole game you just kind of shoot magic, swing sword, and upgrade skill. And you don't really have to put a whole lot of thought into it other than, oh, I want to improve my skill with sword. So I pick sword skill.
yeah.
Details aside, I feel like that's kind of an equivalence to make, where 5 kind of got into a sweet spot of action and survival. Maybe went a little too much on the action, but it still had a
Definitely went too much
balance
on
in
the
there.
action.
But it had a balance in there still somewhat, because you're still
Yeah,
having to worry about resources. Things are still scary.
inventory system was a nightmare.
Yeah. But the point is that after that, they continued with the changes that they had made and took them too far.
And that's where we got
That's
6.
the whole point I was trying to make with that
Yeah,
comparison.
I know. That's like that.
is
So
it's
6.
like
So Resident Evil 6 is basically Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
yeah, because
Yeah,
It's one of those things where I feel like as time has gone on, people have been able to look at Skyrim in a little bit more of an objective lens, and I feel like the same has kind of happened with the Resident Evil series. Whereas we're kind of growing more detached from like the nostalgia of the game, and we can look at it for what it actually is. We can acknowledge where the faults are and
So
be honest and
I
say
play.
this isn't quite what it should have been.
Yeah. So when I played through
Where
7,
like
I was I stopped because I was like, this is just not what I'm wanting. This is not my Resident Evil. It's a first. It felt less like that, and it felt less like Resident Evil, and felt more like
yeah,
a
I'll say the first
first person
person
survival.
perspective, I definitely that was what put me off from it is like the first person horror. It just didn't seem like it was my kind of thing.
And so like I was trying to like, and then like I did see I did see the story, and I sat through with my girlfriend at the time, and she played through it, and I was like, all right, so it is a good story. Like I will not bash on the story of 7. 7 has a good story. It's scary. It's horror. It does really good. I just don't like the first person perspective. I don't like the mechanics. I don't like the controls, and that's the reason I don't like it. Well, as
Yeah,
you go back to
which is kind of
as you said, which is why which is not what you want in the game. But you want
because
the game.
ultimately, when it comes to the longevity of the gameplay's got to be good.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think a lot of people looked at the gameplay of 7 and were like, yeah, this gameplay is really tight and really well crafted to the point where I want to go back and play it over and over again like 7 fucking times. I think most people didn't say that.
No, no, you did one and done. You did one and done. I feel like the
You
same
played
thing.
it through, you enjoyed that one playthrough, you really liked the story, and then you were like, okay, so what now? What do I do with this? And then I know they tried to add in like the survival modes and whatever, but it I don't think it really held
No.
up very well.
And then in Village they did the same thing, and which I mean I would kind of hope so because Ethan Winters not having a face just seems to fit his persona too well. But
Yeah, I feel like that is the one thing that the first person does a little bit better is like it or hate it, it does get you more immersed in the story because when you
yeah,
don't have a face to put to your character's voice, it's more just you.
I know, but they shouldn't have made him talk. If that's the case,
It's
like
just the
if
problem
you're
is
gonna do your first
it's
person,
hard
do
to
your first
make a
person right.
Resident Evil it's hard to make a Resident Evil game with a silent protagonist. That doesn't really
Exactly. So
mesh.
just do what 4 did, put a third person omniscient camera angle over their shoulder, and just have them fucking make absolute one liners and jokes.
Yeah, that's what could work.
Yes. I feel
Yeah,
like 4
I feel like at this point it's pretty much summed up the thoughts on Resident Evil 4 I have.
yeah. I mean
I don't have a
that's
whole lot more to say about that. Like I could talk about what little circumstantial stuff I know about other Resident Evil stuff, but
yeah.
when it comes right down to it, I've expressed my thoughts pretty extensively on what I think about 4.
Yeah, same here. Like
I'll be
there's not
playing more
anything
of
else I
it,
can think
but
of. I'm gonna be playing a lot of mercenaries, let me tell you.
especially once they add Wesker and Ada, that's
Oh
all we
my
want.
god, I can't wait for Wesker. I want to see what they're gonna have for him. I really want them to add Claire. I really do want them to add Claire to that roster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, that was our discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll have links to our Twitches in the description, and I'll probably be using. I can use some of your footage, right? I can use some of your footage from Mercenaries and other stuff
Yeah,
that
feel
you did.
free.
All right. Yep.